which according to different official estimates is anywhere from 21.9% as per the Tendulkar Committee calculation, methodology calculation, to somewhere in the region of 29% as per the Rangarajan Committee, to 77% as per the Arjun Sen Gupta Committee. And then we also had the latest multidimensional poverty index. We had discussed that this poverty line in the Indian context has been severely criticized as a starvation line. We discussed we tried to understand poverty from various theoretical perspectives, including the subculture of poverty theory, the situational constraints theory, the Marxist theory, right, the vicious circle theory. Then we discussed various mechanisms or solutions to address poverty. A quick recap of the theories. What the subcultural theory of poverty suggests that the poor have a distinctive subculture which is different from the culture of the rest of the society. The subculture of poverty is characterized by a sense of resignation, an attitude of fatalism, propensity to not work hard, non-inculcation of the saving habit, a present time orientation, immediate gratification, etc. And these cultural traits are passed down from one generation to another, right, thereby perpetuating poverty. This theory is strongly contested by the situational constraints theory, which says that poor do not have these, a distinctive subculture which promotes laziness and non-working. The poor, like everybody else, other members of the society, they also want to lead a happy and comfortable and improved life. It is however, what are being described as their cultural traits, it is their practical response to the constraints imposed on them by their social situation. The Marxist theory, of course, suggests that poverty is only an extreme manifestation of inequality in society. So the root cause of the existence of poverty is the presence of poverty is the notion of private property. That the bourgeois have a vested interest in the perpetuation, maintenance, continued existence of poverty in a capitalist society, because the poor constitute a vast pool of cheap labor. The poor also serve to keep the overall wages down. Okay, we had also discussed some social mobility studies. Now let me just wrap up the poverty bit. Then the only way, so this was the Marxist view of poverty. Then we had discussed solutions to poverty ranging from emphasizing on a mass-based education system to enable the poor to climb out of it, the welfare state model, the trickle-down theory emphasizing on economic growth, right? The Marxist solution, of course, the establishment of a communist egalitarian society. We had also spoken of various social mobility studies, such as David Glass's study in England in 1949, which found that the rate of mobility in English society was fairly high, but most mobility was short range. Then you had the Oxford mobility study in 1972, which found that the rate of mobility was even long range mobility was reasonably high. Then we had Miles Korak's paper in 2006, if I remember correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. When was Miles Korak's paper, Do Poor Children Become Poor Adults, published? Was that 2006? 2007, okay, fine. Wherein he suggested that a significant chunk of the, I think 40% of children from poor income backgrounds, they remain poor as adults in English society. Then we discussed the Pursuing the American Dream report by the Pew Foundation, the Pew Trust, which found there's a significant stickiness towards the ends, right? So a substantial chunk of those born in the top quintile and the bottommost quintile remain there as adults. Also, that race has a bearing on access to opportunities for mobility. Blacks find it tougher. Long-range mobility was very less. From the bottommost quintile to the topmost was, I think, only 4%. Right? So the American dream is not as frequently realized as it is strongly believed in. Then we discussed, of course, the Social Mobility Index by the World Economic Forum in its 2020 report, which suggests that very few economies provide a conducive framework for much of their population to achieve mobility. Most of those nations are the Scandinavian countries, which are at the top. Other countries, including the US, ranking somewhere around 27, if I remember correctly. India, of course, ranked very low, 76 out of 82 countries in terms of social mobility. India also stands to gain amongst the countries which would gain amongst the maximum by increasing social mobility. Then what? We had discussed the consequences of social mobility, that it can spur economic growth, innovation, greater legitimacy to the system, ensure a greater degree of perceived fairness and trust is generated, and so on and so forth. Right? Then we had discussed these poverty and its solutions, and then of course we had discussed social exclusion, which is a broader concept than poverty. It involves kind of certain individuals or social groups being denied full participation in various aspects of social life. So they are relegated to the fringes of the society. They may be denied access to goods, services, rights, or opportunities. It can be due to various criteria, such as ascriptive criteria, like race or caste, etc. It could be due to geographical isolation, as in the case of tribes. It could be due to physical disability or mental disability. It could be due to migration and a fear of migrants. It could be due to, what else? Sexual orientation, right? Unemployment, etc. Then there are, what are the consequences of this thing? What do you call it? Social exclusion, material deprivation of the excluded individuals and community. And we also talked about self-exclusion as one of the possible ways, right? That communities withdraw kind of from participation in wider society. Like we talked of poor Muslims in Hindu-majority India, or the blacks in American ghettos. Then we talked about what? Yeah, what are the consequences? Material deprivation of the excluded individuals and communities. It may spawn social movements, which are a struggle for recognition by the excluded. It may lead to an increased rate of crime, disaffection with the political system. What else? Psychological illnesses and trauma, inefficiencies in the market, etc. Right? More inclusive policies. Absolutely. And then we had discussed at some length about the conditions of the transgender community in India in the context of what? The Transgender Rights Act having been enacted in 2019. It was passed by the two houses of parliament, and what the rules were framed in 2020. So transgender is a person whose gender identity doesn't or is different from the gender assigned at birth. It includes trans men, trans women, persons with intersex variations, and various socio-cultural identities like Hijra, Jogappa, Jogta, right, Kinnar, etc. There are about 5 lakh transgenders in India who are suffering from myriad socio-cultural problems. We also talked about how their social status was not always lowly. Please also appreciate, friends, if I may add on here, in Hindu culture, not engaging in sexual activity is kind of seen as contributing to spiritual growth. Right? So brahmacharya, for instance, in men is very prized. So because transgenders were also unable to consummate a sexual relationship, they were also considered as somewhat spiritually elevated beings. And we discussed the tale from Ramayana and so on and so forth. Then we talked of what? How it was Section 377 and the Criminal Rights Act, which dehumanized and stigmatized transgender communities in India. Under the Criminal Rights Act, basically certain communities were considered as quote-unquote born criminals. Right? So their activities were, their lifestyle became suspicious, like Banjaras, like Hijras. Okay? And this kind of racist kind of an act was done away with after independence, but the stigma remained. Then, so the transgender identity is stigmatized. There is stereotypical depiction in the media and consequently in the wider society. It has become a term of mocking and ridicule. Supreme Court in its Nalsa judgment acknowledged that transgenders face extreme discrimination in various fields, be it housing, education, bureaucracy, law, police, access, healthcare access, various fields. Rajesh Talwar in his book has highlighted the various problems faced by the transgender community, including the kind of dissipation of their traditional economic activities, compelling them into beggary and prostitution, sexual abuse in various public places, including police stations and prisons. What else? Abandonment by families. There's this Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, who is one of these foremost. She's also the head of the Kinnan Akhada, interestingly, which participated in the Kumbh, the last Kumbh. So Lakshmi has written a book titled Ni Lakshmi Ni Hijra, okay, in Marathi, and it was translated in various languages, including English, in which she has highlighted her personal anguish. Right? She was born in a somewhat upper middle class kind of a Maharashtrian household, and when she realized that she is transgender, her parents were surprisingly supportive. Yet she could not adjust in a cisgender social environment. Cisgender is the opposite of transgender, right? So she she's also a PhD in Bharatanatyam or something like that. And after having studied long, then she joined a bar as a bar dancer, and she was abused by so-called cisgender straight men. She was exploited in monetary terms, physically, sexually, emotionally. And she has kind of shared her yearning for love and acceptance, and how she was kind of continuously failing in that effort. Then we have discussed so point is, friends, transgenders, like every one of us, they are full human beings. Like we need love, they need love. Like we need physical touch, caressing and acceptance, they also do. Right? Like we do not want to be treated as just objects of sexual pleasure, etc. Also they do not. Right? So they want to possibly also have a yearning to be a parent. Right? So they are much beyond the caricature that mass media kind of presents them to be, or the caricature which is developed even in the public imagination. We discussed the provisions of the Transgender Persons Rights Act 2019, including the establishment of a National Council for Transgender Persons, headed by the Union Social Welfare Minister, and including various members of the community. Self-identification with the provision that one can apply for an registration with the district magistrate office. Then there are prohibition on discrimination in housing, education, employment, etc. There are penal provisions for abusing transgenders, etc. And with that, we are done with the wrapping up the revision. Moving on. Today, now regarding this unit, friends, social stratification, just to clarify, we are done with the unit, okay, with the last lecture. Certain topics which have not been touched. Now there is a topic called various dimensions of stratification, such as class, status groups, gender. Gender as a form of stratification we have already discussed when we have talked about patriarchy, right? That is basically a gender-based stratification system. Then ethnicity and race. These will be covered for sure at reasonable length in paper 2, because these concepts recur in paper 2, so it logically makes sense to study them at one place. So even for paper 1, we'll be studying these when we do paper 2. Okay? Or some of you, if you've done paper 2 with me, then it has been covered there. Okay? Then there are various terms which are used: equality, inequality, hierarchy, stratification, deprivation, exclusion. All of these have been somewhere or the other somewhat covered, and then you have to supplement with the suggested readings, which may be the institute material or Sangwan, right? Basically these two. So we are done with the topic on social stratification. Moving on to what? One of the most despised, should I say, one of the most abused, literally abused aspect of social life. Which one am I talking about? We all love to hate them. Absolutely, we are talking about the political system. So friends, what do you understand by the term politics? What is politics? What do you understand by the term politics? And dare you give me definitions? What is your layman assessment, the meaning of the term politics? Power relationships, governing, quest for political power, very well put. Executive organ. That is very restrictive, I would say. Representatives, leadership. Okay, these are you throwing some keywords at me. The political system deals with these things. Huh? Power to administer, representation. Power relationship between individuals. Why only individuals? These could be between social groups. Fine. So absolutely, friends. At the heart of politics is the concept of power. And very simply, politics can be understood or or defined as a struggle for power, as a striving for power between individuals and groups. What is power, friends? If you would recollect from our discussion on authority, when we had discussed under Weber, what is power? Power is the ability of an individual or a group to have their way in a social situation, to have others do as they please, as they want, irrespective of their will. Right? So the kind of ability to extract compliance from others, that is effectively power. Right? Now, power differentials, friends, do they exist in every society? Can we say power differentials exist in every society? Yes, they do. See, there are two notions of power. Okay, one is what is called as fixed sum concept of power. Fixed or constant sum concept of power. The other is, quick guesses, variable sum concept of power. Fixed sum concept of power means what? It is a view of power which contains that the amount of power in a society is fixed or finite. So, if power of a particular individual or a particular social group increases, the power of the other necessarily decreases. For example, let us say in the society there are 10 units of power. If there are two social groups, A and B, then A holds 7 units, B holds 3 units. If the power of A increases to 8 units, what will happen to the power of B? It will necessarily decrease to 2 units. Why? Because the amount of power in the society is constant or is fixed, namely 10 units. So one group necessarily only gains at the expense of the other. Which sociological theory would have this view of power? We know these guys, or we know the guy. Who else but Karl Marx? Marx's theory has a constant sum concept of power. So there are broadly two social groups, mainly you have the bourgeois and the proletariat in capitalist society, and one group will gain in power only at the expense of the other. So it's always like a match between competing groups. Okay. The variable sum concept of power, on the other hand, does not consider that the amount of power is fixed in the society. Okay. Instead, it considers that the total amount of power in the society can either increase or decrease. So power does not necessarily, it does not necessarily mean that if one has greater power, the power of others will reduce. That is a variable sum concept of power. Who would argue in such lines? Who would argue on such lines? The functionalist theory, we'll be discussing these at length as we proceed. They have a variable sum concept of power. And I'll be elaborating on this as we proceed. But broadly, they don't see, but they see that the amount of power in a society can actually increase or decrease. Weber Bhai Sahab, where does he lie? He also subscribes to the constant sum concept of power. So Weber also sees powers as an aspect of social relationships, wherein one person can extract obedience, compliance from others. So if the power of one increases, say this teacher-student relationship, is it a power relationship? If I become more powerful, then automatically Weber would contend you become that much less powerful. Why? Because I can extract greater obedience from you. And if your power increases, God forbid, my power commensurately declines. Okay? Now let us try to appreciate various theories of power and politics. The first theory that we begin with is which theory? Everywhere, in every unit. So some of these students are suggesting that we don't want petty power in this teacher-student relationship, we want real hard power as civil servants. So he's granting me power that you keep power in this equation. So we begin with the functionalist theory of power. Functional scholars like Sri Talcott Parsons, how they view power? Parsons or the functionalist suggests that power is a societal resource. Power is a societal resource. It is the ability of the society to attain its goals. Every society is based on shared norms and values. So from shared norms and values, you have some common goals that you want to achieve as a collectivity. Power is the ability of a society to achieve its goals. To achieve these goals, what the society does? Amongst its members, some people vest their power in the leadership. So there come into existence power differentials. Power differentials which exist in society. How they have come about? Please appreciate, now I am an ordinary citizen, you are another, and there are hundreds and thousands, and then there is a person by the name of Narendra Damodar Das Modi. So what all we have done? The electorate, we have vested our power in the leadership. Now, Parsons compares power to money, politicians to banks. Now you have some money, you deposit that money in the bank, right? Whose money is it? When you deposit the money in the bank, then whose money is it? Is it your money or the bank's money? Tell me. You put your money in the bank, in the savings account, in the current account. Whose money is it once you have deposited it in the bank? For those of you who are suggesting it becomes the bank's money, your bankers would be having a field day. It remains your money for God's sake. Okay, so please have that sense of ownership. Even after you deposit it at the bank, it does not become bank's money. It remains very much entirely, legally, morally, in every which way, it remains your money. Okay, so assuming that you know that, it doesn't become bank's money, it remains your money. Likewise, you deposit, or the members of the society deposit their power. They make deposits of their power in the politicians. We have deposited our power in Modi ji. So how is Modi ji more powerful than the ordinary citizen? Because several ordinary citizens have made deposits of their power with him. They have literally posed their faith in his leadership. Right? Now, so just like money gets collected in the bank, power gets collected in the political leadership. Now, why did you deposit money in the bank? Is it for the benefit of the bank? Whose benefit did you deposit the money for? For your own benefit. And what particularly in banking, what benefit were you seeking when you deposit money in the bank? Interest, safety of the money, right? Some such benefits you were seeking. Likewise, members of the public deposit their power in the political leadership. For what purpose? In order to secure some benefits. For the public's benefit, not the politician's benefit. So what will the bank do? It will faithfully pay you interest every month. It will keep its part of the bargain. You deposited the money so that you earn some interest income, and the bank will faithfully give interest to you. Likewise, the political leadership, what they do, now like the bank collects finance capital, the politicians have collected political capital, right? They utilize it to pursue whose benefit? Why does now Modi ji has this immense power? Because all of us have posed our faith in him, or many of us have. Whom does he use it for? For Modi's benefit, his own benefit, or whose benefit? All anti-nationals in the class, he uses the money for the benefit of the society, of the public at large. He does what? Sabka saath, sabka vikas. Okay? So the power which is deposited by the members of the public in the leadership is utilized by the leaders for attaining the collective goals of the society. This is why we had put them there. This is why we had deposited our power in them. Now imagine you have deposited your money in XYZ bank. Okay. Now another bank, ABC, is offering you better rate of interest. What will you do? Or if this bank is not, providing you good services, is not up to the mark, then what will you do? You will withdraw your money from bank ABC and deposit it in bank XYZ. Likewise, members of the public can withdraw the deposits of power that they have made in the leadership, the incumbent leadership. They can withdraw it and deposit it in another bank or another political leadership. So if you're not satisfied with the performance of the Modi government or the benefits that they have generated for you, for the society, then you will not vote for the Modi government again, and you will vote, God forbid, for Rahul Gandhi. Right? Or Mamta Didi, whatever your political preference. So point is, friends, who benefits by these power differentials in society? It is the whole society which benefits. We create these power differentials deliberately. I am less powerful than Modi. Why is Modi more powerful than I am? Because I have deposited my vote or my faith through my vote in him, and many like me. But I have done it for my benefit. And the political leadership then uses these power differentials, the power which accumulates with them, to attain the collective goals of the society. The power remains of the people, just like the money remains of the bank depositors. In the banks, you can withdraw at will. In political realm, you can withdraw them at the next elections. Right? So this is the functional theory of power. Simple? Simple, of course it is. Is it convincing? Seems too naive a view of politics, to almost a nearly childish view, some would contend. The politicians are these honest, lovely people who would pursue the greater good. Okay? Then there is a very, and I also appreciate, just to add in a bit here, in the functionalist view, if the political leadership is able to effectively pursue the collective goals, the power of the society as a whole will increase. Please appreciate that. So if the Modi government is able to provide India effective leadership, India on the whole will become more powerful. The standard of living of the people on the whole will rise. Our bargaining power in the comity of nations will increase. So power benefits, so power is not a zero-sum game. Power differentials in society enable the leadership to use that resource to more efficiently pursue the collective goals. And as they use that power efficiently, as they sincerely pursue those goals, as and when those goals are attained, the power in the society actually increases. And if the leadership is a failure, the power of the society can actually decrease. Okay? So power is not a fixed sum, it is a variable sum. In stark contrast to the functional theory of power is which theory? Is the Marxist theory. From a Marxist perspective, friends, what is the source of power? Who enjoys power? In any historical epoch, what determines that? It is the economy, stupid, as Marx would say it. Or if Marx was from Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, he would have said, "Baap bada na bhaiya, sabse bada rupaiya." Okay, so money trumps everything. In other words, friends, the source of power lies in the economy or the base. Those who are dominant in the economic domain, they are also those who dominate in the production system, they are also the ruling class. In a capitalist society, who are the ruling class? The bourgeois. In a feudal society, who are the ruling class? The feudal lords. The political system, from a Marxist perspective, is a part of the, quickly, this should be like the back of your hand now. It is a part of the, many of you are not even bothering writing the old word, it's a big word, huh? But yes, it is a part of the superstructure. The old politico-administrative machinery, political parties, what have you, the whole shebang. The constitutional and legal framework, everything, it belongs to the superstructure. And the superstructure, what does what? The political system, as a part of the superstructure, it has a stabilizing and legitimizing effect on the economy. In other words, it legitimizes and helps to perpetuate the inequalities in the base. Right? Now, how would they do that? Let us try to appreciate. Marx had famously stated that the state, I'm quoting Shri Karl Marx, the state is but a committee. The state is but a committee to manage the common affairs of the whole of bourgeois. I repeat, the state is but a committee to manage the common affairs of the whole of bourgeois. What he is effectively saying is the government is nothing more than merely a committee which is managing the affairs of the capitalists, the capitalist class as a whole. So this government does not represent Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas. Kiski sarkar hai ye? Whose government is it? Ye soot poot ki sarkar hai. Or it is the government of the Adanis and the Ambanis. Right? So this is a Marxist view. How the government rules, let us try to appreciate. Now the government, what it has to do, it has to, from a Marxist perspective, we are still in the Marxist perspective, I'm just cleaning the board because I need space. From the Marxist perspective, the political system of the government, it has two apparatuses at its disposal. So they are going to do what? They basically ensure that the dominance of the dominance is perpetuated, that the interests of the capitalists in capitalist society are protected, nurtured, promoted. How they do that? The government has two mechanisms at its disposal to secure the interests of the bourgeois. Namely, they are what is called the ideological state apparatus and the repressive state apparatus. These terms are used by several Marxist scholars such as Althusser, amongst others. The state secures the interests of the capitalists through two mechanisms, the repressive state apparatus and the ideological state apparatus. What do they mean? Repressive state apparatus means the power of the danda, okay, or the use of brute force, physical force, to secure the interests of the capitalists. This is done through mechanisms like the police force, army, judicial verdicts, physical incarceration in prisons, etc. That represents the strong arm of the state, or the repressive state apparatus. You tell me, friends, what is your experience? You live in a nearly a capitalist society today, or in the Western world, whatever you're reading of history. Does the state frequently rely on the repressive state apparatus? Does the government physically beat the workers into compliance to send them to the factories to produce profit for the capitalists? Very rarely. Very rarely they would resort to physical force. In the main, they rely upon the ideological state apparatus. Meaning, using what is ideological state apparatus? It includes stuff like the education system. Very importantly in current times, the mass media. In earlier periods, religion was a part of the ideological state apparatus. So using all of these, the government ensures that the masses are ideologically conditioned to accept capitalism as just, fair and reasonable. So that members of the working class willingly submit to their own exploitation in the capitalist system. The ideological state apparatus, friends, basically serves to generate and maintain false class consciousness. Example would be you. Have you ever questioned, you are a product of the modern education system, have you ever questioned the legitimacy of the capitalist system? For those of you who've been working, have you been looking at the employers as exploiters or as almost benevolent, patriarchs? So those guys, the capitalists, so I say you're working for Infosys, what is Murthy ji doing? Murthy ji is stealing a part of, from a Marxist perspective, he's stealing what is your due. You have added value and he pays you a pittance. He extracts value of rupees 5 lakhs from you and pays you 50,000. And you are happily worshipping Narayana Murthy. Why? Because he's glorified in the media, as a philanthropist, as this generous and ideal employer, as whatnot, as this ethical businessman. Your whole education, particularly if you've done masters, MBA or something like that, is basically designed to make you think that the capitalist system is just fair and reasonable. So you accept and willingly participate in this exploitative capitalist economy. Westergaard and Ressler, they also suggest, they're also Marxist scholars, they suggest that the capitalist system, in the capitalist system, the power of the capitalists remains unchallenged, remains practically unchallenged because of the pervasiveness of the ruling class ideology. So you have been indoctrinated with this mindset, this mode of thinking that the prevailing capitalist system is just and it is fair. So why is Murthy 100,000 times richer than you are? Does he deserve it or he doesn't? What does the capitalist system teach us? They'll also design these fanciful stories. They started in a garage. And so we see the exploited, see the capitalist system as meritocratic, well-deserved, or perhaps the only way things can be, and reasonable. So willingly you submit to your own exploitation in this oppressive, extractive, alienating capitalist system. Ralph Miliband, he has highlighted the role played by advertising in shaping the public discourse. He suggests that the public is being subjected to a massive indoctrination. Advertising is engaged in a process of legitimizing, continuously legitimizing the prevailing system. Through advertising, these large corporate behemoths, okay, these engines of global capitalism, they are portrayed as what? How do you look at Nestle or Hindustan Lever or Samsung? How do you see them? Basically nice, benevolent, as if they are making your life wonderful by offering you all these goodies, as if almost for free. And they also encourage consumerism. Consumerism is portrayed as the road to happiness. So you will be happy when you eat Maggi, or when you drive that expensive car, or wear those fancy shoes, all of which will put money where? In the pocket of the capitalist. So the capitalist system is being continuously legitimized through advertising. Ads are being constantly bombarded towards us through mass media. So you watch a half an hour of TV, say a serial you're watching, 10-12 minutes would be advertising. That advertising portrays corporates as benevolent entities generating happiness. You know, they link the consumption of these products with things like Mummy Ka Pyar, right? So Maggi is the proof of mother's love. That is how this sense of complacence, willing acceptance of exploitation is generated amongst the masses, according to the Marxist scholars. Polenzas, another Marxist fellow. Tell me, friends, now he raises an important question, or there is a very, generally intense debate within Marxism, whether the dominant class, which is dominant in the economy, is it the directly ruling class in a capitalist society, or mostly it is different? Tell me, friends, what is your experience? Are the capitalists ruling directly or indirectly in capitalist societies? In other words, bluntly put, are the politicians also capitalists, or they are a separate group? In other words, you have two examples of these two phenomena. One is a Modi, who himself does not belong to the capitalist class, or on the other hand, you have a Donald Trump, who himself was a capitalist. Which is the norm in capitalist society? The capitalist class rules directly, a la Donald Trump, or indirectly, as in the case of a Modi. Polenzas suggests that mainly the ruling class, the politically ruling class, is distinct from, separate from the dominant class, meaning the class which is dominant in the economy. So it is the Modi model. Modi represents the interest or secures the interest, he's a Marxist after all. So Modi secures the interest of Adani Ambani, but it is not as if Adani Ambani or Tata are directly also the Prime Minister. And this guy says it is important that the ruling class has relative autonomy from the bourgeois in capitalism. So it is separate and relatively autonomous from the bourgeois. Why is it important that the members of the capitalist class do not rule directly, but rather indirectly? Because, according to Polenzas, please appreciate, friends, the capitalist class is not homogeneous, right? There is intense competition amongst members of the bourgeois. So, if some capitalists directly start ruling, the interests of the other bourgeois will be threatened. Say, if Ratan Tata becomes the Prime Minister, then all projects, benefits will be awarded to the Tata Industries. And what will happen to Reliance and Birlas and Adanis and Ambanis and so on? So, you require a third party who can somewhat neutrally look after the affairs of the bourgeois as a whole. So this separation of the ruling class and the dominant class ensures that the interests of the bourgeois as a whole are taken care of. Secondly, friends, the ruling class may require to make concessions to the working class every now and then. It is necessary that the ruling class make certain concessions to the working class. If the capitalists are directly ruling, it will hurt their pockets. and they are unlikely to give those concessions. For example, friends, minimum wage legislation, right? That would imply that the capitalists would have to be committed as per the law to pay at least a certain, reasonable minimum amount to the worker. The capitalists themselves are unlikely to bring in such a legislation, but a ruling class relatively autonomous of the bourgeois brings about such legislation. Why is it important? For the benefit of the capitalist system, to ensure that it is sustained. Such kind of concessions to the working class ensure that the working class revolutionary potential is dissipated. Otherwise, it will, become extremely frustrated, and if it is very, very unabashedly exploited, it may lead to a working class revolution. So it will diffuse the threatening potential of the working class by making regular concessions to it. Absolutely, like a safety valve. So various welfare measures of the state can be interpreted in this manner, right? So after 70 years, the Indian state has done what? Given toilets, a sanitation facility to the masses. So that will satiate them for a while. Then you give them tap water. Okay? All of these measures do not in any significant manner lead to a redistribution of wealth in society. Please appreciate. The rich remain rich, the poor remain poor. Only slightly better off than their ancestors. So the welfare measures are no indication of a pro-poor government or a pro-working class government. Also, friends, because the politically ruling class is separate from the capitalist class, it helps the rulers to promote a myth that they represent all sections of the society. Bluntly put, friends, if Dhirubhai or this Mukesh Ambani gets up tomorrow, decides to become the Prime Minister, and he says, I will do Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, nobody's going to take his word for it. But when Modi says it, people will buy it. So, the political leadership can promote the myth that they are working for the welfare of the whole society or for the masses. That serves to legitimize the prevailing system. Okay? The Weberian view of power, this is the Marxist view of power. Weber's analysis of power we have discussed when we spoke of the concept of parties. Parties are groupings of people who come together to secure social power. They may be based on class or on status or both or neither. Right? That whole thing that we had discussed. How political action is not so directly connected to one's class position alone as Marx would have you believe. Okay? Another third theory of power that we discuss is elite theory. There are two versions of elite theory. One is the classical elite theory. The other is the modern elite theory, which is the concept of power elite, which is the modern elite theory. Classical elite theory is represented by the writings of scholars like Pareto and Mosca. Now, what they argue, elite refers to basically the most, the top of the notch kind of, in any aspect of social life. For example, the political elites would be the union cabinet, the ministers, MPs, okay, the handful of people who are at the helm of affairs in a field. Likewise, you may have sporting elites like, the Indian cricket team and the, right, the coaches, etc. Those who are at the helm of affairs in a field can be considered as the elites. A very small group of people, a very, very minuscule minority, which is at the top in a field. Now, classical elite theorists, like Pareto and Mosca, what they suggest that in any society, at any given point of time, it is inevitable that a handful of people will rule over the vast majority. In other words, elite rule is inevitable. Throughout human history, the masses, the vast majority, have been ruled by a numerically minority, minuscule rather, ruling elite. Pareto suggests, friends, now who rules? Please appreciate. In order to rule, certain personality traits or a certain psychological makeup is required. Very few people have those kind of abilities or traits which are required to rule. Most of us do not have them. Those who have them, they rule over the masses in every society at any given point in human history. Based on the psychological attributes, Pareto classifies the ruling elites into two types, namely lions and foxes. How are lions, or how do they rule? What are their characteristics? It's an analogy from the jungle. Okay, what is the defining characteristics of lions? Tell me. They rule with the use of force, brute force, decisive action, possibly physically, subverting any dissent, crushing ruthlessly. So they are ruthless, assertive, dominating, don't mind using force or violence. Okay, these are the characteristics of lion type personalities. Foxes, on the other hand, how do they rule? What are the characteristics of fox or lomri? Right, so lomri is chalak. Foxes rule by cunning, wheeling dealing, manipulation, deceit, absolutely. So these are the two types of qualities based on which people can come to rule. Pareto says that human history is the graveyard of elites. It is a graveyard of elites. Meaning, no matter how long back you go in human history, what will you find? The same pattern, that the vast majority is being ruled by a small minority. Pareto also suggests that any ruling elite is not in power forever. So what you will find in human history, that one type of elite is being replaced by the other. If lions are ruling, they will be replaced by foxes, and then after a while, foxes will be replaced by lions. So there is a continuous circulation of elites, according to Pareto, which goes on throughout human history. The ruling elite of one type is eventually replaced by the other. Okay. Now, why does this circulation take place? Why can't a particular type of elite stay forever in power? Two important reasons offered by Pareto to explain the circulation of elites. One is, once an elite comes to power, okay, with time, they start enjoying the privilege of office and they start losing their power. So they become decadent, their qualities start to decay. In other words, if lions are the ruling elites, if they are in office, they will lose their vigor, their vitality, their decisiveness, their ruthlessness, simply by enjoying the privileges of office. So that will give an opportunity for the foxes to kind of outmaneuver them and displace them to come to power. When foxes come to power, they would also become lax in their ways, not remain so alert, lose their cunning, right? Making them susceptible to be replaced by the lions. So continuously throughout human history, we see lions being replaced by foxes, and so on. History is a graveyard of elites. Throughout history, you will find that it is a handful of people who are ruling over the vast majority. Another reason, friends, is that, when the governing elites are primarily lions, they lack cunning, manipulation skills, etc., which are also important in order to retain power. When foxes or an elite, a ruling elite, they are primarily foxes, they lack in lion-type qualities, which is ruthlessness, the ability to crush, right, or take very decisive action. So, each elite lacks the type or the qualities of the other type. Both type of qualities are important in order to remain in power. That is why, there is this continuous circulation of elites in human history. Fine. Now, where do you place Modi ji? Tell me, friends. Modi ji is what? Lion or fox? See, with his 56 inch chhati, 56 inches chest, he is definitely lion-like. Decisive action in Kashmir, 370, and so on and so forth. How he treats, or rather ill-treats, the minorities, allegedly. The UPA regime you saw before that was which type? The leadership, Sonia Gandhi. She even looks foxy. Clearly, very chatur lomri she is. How about Dr. Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh? Fox or lion? He was verily a fox, friends. Okay, you should give credit where due. Please appreciate, he is very cleverly, he became the longest serving non-Gandhi Prime Minister. Right? And always portrayed himself as this reluctant politician. He laid to rest the best laid plans of many Congress diggats, right? Very stalwarts of the Congress party. Khele khilai khiladi, like those who have been in the game for so long, like Pranab Mukherjee and Antony and what have you. So clearly very foxy. So one may contend that, they were in power for 2 terms. So what happens? They started losing on their cleverness, manipulation skills, and Rahul Gandhi comes into the leadership position of this thing. So he represents the decay in that cleverness. So he doesn't have his mother's, political acumen or Dr. Singh's innocence, right? Or seeming innocence rather. So that was the decay, therefore replaced by the lion. Okay. Some may contend that Modi ji has both lion and fox type qualities, right? If that is the case, he may stay in power for near perpetuity. So that is in general, friends, Pareto suggests military leaders or autocratic leaders represent which type? Lion or foxes? Military leadership is lion type. and democratically elected leaders are typically foxish. Okay. As examples, when you're writing in the exam, for God's sake, do not name Modi ji, Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, okay, as lions or foxes. So we should avoid giving such this thing. Examples from the contemporary times. That two personalities. Okay, it's only for your understanding, confined to the classroom. Okay. So this is the these what do you call elite theorists? They have a very dim view of the masses. Mosca, for one, he explicitly states that the masses lack the capacity to govern themselves. They literally have a need to be led. So if the lions and foxes rule, who are we? We are the sheep. We meaning the masses. We are literally looking for that Pied Piper who will show us the way. So only a handful of people in the society have those qualities which are required to rule. Those who have them, they secure power and lord over the vast majority. So for them, the masses literally require the leadership of elites who have these kind of qualities. Do you personally, I want you to introspect for a minute. What do you think, and honest, okay, not a bombastic or a kind of a, self-aggrandizing, but an honest assessment, your own assessment of yourself. Do you have these qualities which are required to govern? Are you lion type, are you fox type, or are you a sheep? Do you have the ruthlessness to eliminate your political opponents? Or the cunning to hoodwink them into willing compliance? Or are you that sade dal roti wale people? Oh, so many foxes in the house. This jungle is populated with so many foxes. And a few lions. And then some are admittedly sheepish. Some have both qualities. Chaliye. Which of the three theories, friends? Okay, let me move to another, and then which of the three theories till now seems to be the most apt explanation of the political system? Functional theory, that you seem to have dismissed with contempt as bachkana. Some of you have distorted with Marx, and many more are endorsing the elite theory. Moving on, let us look at the political system from another perspective of the power elite theory or the modern elite theory. The Power Elite, friends, is the title of a book authored by Sri C. Wright Mills. In this book, he has tried to analyze the nature of the political system in modern American society, modern meaning 20th century America. Though it is an elite theory, but please appreciate it is quite different from the classical elite theory just explained. Quite different. How it is different, please appreciate. For one, Mills does not consider that elite rule is inevitable. Very interestingly, going back to the classical elite theory for once, from the perspective of classical elite theory, the variations in different forms of government do not amount to much. The so celebrated French Revolution, right? Monarchy, outdated political system replaced by the modern democratic political system, are not too different from each other. So whether it is modern multi-party democracies or monarchies with an absolute, centralized authority, they are both what? Eventually, they are both elite rule. Whether it is the Communist Party, single party government in the Eastern Bloc during the Cold War, or the multi-party democracies of the West, they are not too different from each other. Whether it is a totalitarian government, like say Nazi Germany, or military rule, say the Janta rule in Burma, or a thriving democracy like India or USA, or a theocratic state, they are not too different from each other. At the end of the day, they are all slight variations of the same thing, which is what? Which is elite rule. A small, minuscule minority ruling over the vast majority. That is inevitable. Okay? This is the classical elite theory. Coming to the power elite theory by Sri C. Wright Mills. In his book, The Power Elite, he suggests that elite rule is not inevitable. In fact, it is a relatively recent development in American history. It is a relatively recent development in American history. Also, friends, he does not see the elites as possessing some, distinctive, superior psychological characteristics or personality traits. He does not see elite rule as a result of, those differences in personality traits. Instead, he sees it in institutional terms. Institutional terms. He says that the power elite who rule modern American society, 20th century America, it constitutes of those who occupy the top positions in three key institutions. Which three? The federal government, meaning the central government. Who else? The big corporations. And the military. Those who occupy the top positions in the federal, meaning the central government, okay, in USA. The federal government, big corporates, and the American military, they constitute a unified power elite. Together, they rule American society. So, the power elite is a coincidence of political power, military power. When these three coincide, it results in the power elite. They are unified in the sense their interests converge. Their interests often converge. Interests converge in the sense, friends, will suggest that American capitalism, okay, it is in large measure, there's this military-industrial complex governing American society. Okay, American capitalism is an important part of it is military, okay, or military, arms manufacturing, sales, etc. So, the political rulers, those in government, they will be sympathetic to the needs of the military, of ensuring that the interests of the economic elites are taken care of. So their interests definitely converge. Not only that, their way of thinking also matches with each other. Why? Because they typically come from similar social backgrounds. Their children would study in the same schools and Ivy League colleges. They would go to the same parties, become, be members of the same high-profile exclusive clubs. And very importantly, they would do what? Marry amongst each other. So you would find that a top politician's daughter or son is married to a business magnate or the son of a military general. So there is cohesiveness, family ties, friendships. It's like a cozy club. So their thinking is aligned with each other, their interests are aligned with each other. So they constitute a unified power elite. And this unified power elite, now this was not always so, friends. Not always so, yeah. He says it has only recently happened in American society. Why recently? Because earlier, the three types of power, political, economic and military power, they were dispersed amongst smaller entities. So, in the past, in the not so distant past, the state governments enjoyed, reasonable autonomy in the United States of America, including in fact at some point a right to secede from the Union. So, the states enjoyed considerable autonomy, but with passage of time, what has come to happen, that political power has got increasingly concentrated in the federal government or the central government. Likewise, earlier, economic power was dispersed amongst a large number of small businesses. But with passage of time, the economic power has got concentrated into a handful of very large corporations. Similarly, military power was earlier dispersed amongst this large number of local level militias. But increasingly, with passage of time, military power got concentrated in the US military. So by the time of the Second World War, okay, the concentration of power in these three was complete and the unified power elite had emerged, which ruled over American society. This unified power elite enjoys unprecedented power, Mills argues. They enjoy unprecedented power. And they enjoy this power almost without any reference to the people. Major decisions affecting the lives of millions of ordinary Americans are taken literally by this handful of people behind closed doors, without any reference to the people. So major decisions, for example, not only for America but for world history, such as the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they were taken by a handful of people behind closed doors. Or America's involvement in the Vietnam War, in which thousands of ordinary American soldiers, they would be affected. They were taken by this handful of people behind closed doors. Or imagine a Fed rate cut. Okay, the Federal Reserve is America's equivalent of the RBI. So when the Federal Reserve lowers or increases the interest rates, it has a very huge impact on the economy as a whole, on the rate at which you get credit as an ordinary American from credit card or housing loan or education loan. It will be taken by these handful of companies, of people behind closed doors. So they enjoy unprecedented, almost unquestioned kind of a power in modern American society. Okay? And this power is in the main used for self-aggrandizement, to improve their own lot, to serve their own interests, right? The interests of the power elite. How does this guy look to you? Does he make some sense? Can you draw parallels in India? Do you see a power elite ruling our society? Do you think that major decisions affecting millions and a billion plus Indians are taken by these handful of people behind closed doors? Without any reference to the people almost? Say the Pokhran blast. Okay, so Vajpayee ji, Kalam ji, and possibly, Tata, whatever, they would have asked them, Bhai Sahab, economic impact, we're expecting sanctions, you manage them, we'll manage, go ahead. Some of you are suggesting there is, in India, instead of military, there's the bureaucrat is part of that ruling elite. Chali, moving on to the last theory. We have already discussed functional, Marxist and elite theory. Two types of elite theory and functional and Marxist. Finally, what do you call? Pluralism. pluralist theory, scholars like Robert Dahl, what he suggests, or what the pluralism theory suggests, that in modern societies, there is a plurality of social identities and social groups. In modern societies, there exists a plurality of social identities and social groups. These different groups, different people, they are, what is politics? They are fighting amongst them in order to secure certain resources of the society for themselves. Through the medium of politics, different social groups' identities, they are striving to secure their interests. In order to do so, for example, friends, just to, in Indian society, do you see plurality? A plurality of identities and social groups? So you have different, or a plurality of religious identities in India. You have Hindus and Muslims and Christians and Sikhs, Isai, whatever, tribals. There are different linguistic groups, Hindi speaking and Tamil speaking and Kannada speaking and Telugu speaking and Bengali and Gujarati and hundreds of languages. There are different ethnic groups, linguistic groups, religious groups, castes, different classes, different occupational groups. Yes or no? You have working class people and middle class people and the capitalist class people. You have salaried professionals, you have petty bourgeois or the small traders. You have scores of castes and communities. You have tribals and non-tribals and hundreds of different tribes. Likewise, in American society, you have a multiplicity of races, a multiplicity of occupations and classes and sexual identities and the groups of, there are disabled persons and so on and so forth. In modern societies, there exists a plurality or multiplicity of social identities and social groups. Now, these different social groups, they want to secure a greater share of the proverbial social pie for themselves. So there's a, imagine that society's resources are this piece of cake. So everybody wants a bigger share of this cake for themselves. Say, in India, we have hundreds of castes. So Jats would say, I want this much piece of the cake. Why am I getting only this much piece of the cake? Baniyas say, no, I want this much piece of the cake. The Brahmins say, no, I want. The Dalits say, no, I want. And so on and so forth. How you divide the resources of the society? These different social groups are engaged in a continuous struggle with each other on that aspect. Now, how do you participate in this struggle with each other? How should we do it? Muh tod de? Should we bash up each other in order to secure greater resources? No, we do not do that in a civilized modern society. We elect our representatives. These different social groups which exist, we choose our representatives who on our behalf participate in this struggle for power, this struggle for the societal resources with the leaders of the other social groups or identities. Right? So, the Dalits have chosen Mayawati to, on their behalf, fight it out in the political arena to secure a greater share of the pie for the Dalits. The Yadavs have relied upon Lalu Yadav, Mulayam Yadav or their progeny to secure a greater share of the pie for the Yadavs. The Patels have relied upon blah blah and so on and so forth. Different castes have elected a leadership which will try to secure a greater share of the pie for themselves. Likewise, the Muslims have elected an OIC to secure Muslim interest. The Hindus have elected arguably Narendra Modi to secure their interest and so on and so forth. So different castes, religious groups, linguistic groups, communities, classes, etc. They choose persons to represent them in the political arena. And what do these guys do? The political leadership, they try to then secure the maximum share of the pie for the social group which they represent. So what is Mayawati's agenda? It is clearly to maximize the benefits for the Dalits. What is Mulayam Yadav's agenda? To seek maximum benefits for Yadav and so on and so forth. In other words, in modern societies, the multi-party democratic model that we have, it represents the interests of different social groups which exist. The political leaders, they are envisaged as honest brokers who participate on behalf of their respective groups in the political arena. So they truly are the representatives of the social groups which have chosen them. And they are trying to honestly secure maximum benefits for their respective constituencies. Okay, or their social groups. You will not be naming persons or using names like a Modi or a Mayawati in your answers. Okay, this is only for understanding. While writing answers, you shall not name persons like Modi or Mayawati. Now friends, please appreciate pluralism theory is also known as elite pluralism. Elite pluralism. What this theory? Why elite pluralism? Because who rules? An elite or a handful of people are ruling. This theory also accepts that. But unlike the other elite theories which we have just discussed, pluralism theory considers that the elites are not a cohesive block of people who are there only for their own sake. According to pluralism, elites represent a plurality of social groups. A plurality of social groups. And they are not in the political game for self-aggrandizement. Rather, they are trying to secure a share of the political pie for their respective peoples or the people that they represent, who have chosen them. So, for example, elite theory, like classical elite or power elite theory of Mills, that is very dismissive of democracy, critical of democracy. They say democracy, basically consider democracy is basically a sham. Okay, the masses cannot rule. It's only a handful who are ruling over the vast majority. These guys say elite pluralism theory suggests that democracy and elite rule are not incompatible. It makes in fact perfect sense. The elites are not a cohesive lot, they represent a very wide spectrum of the population. How do you look at the Indian elites, friends? You look at the composition of the Indian parliament. Is there any similarity in social background of a Mayawati and a Vajpayee and or a Mayawati, Modi and Sonia Gandhi? Clearly no, they come from diverse, very different social backgrounds. They are not gone to the same schools and they are not study buddies as our elite theory makes it out to be. So these elites are also pluralistic, like the social groups that they represent. So the elites come from different backgrounds and try to honestly secure the interests of their respective social groups. So people rule through their chosen representatives or the elites. Right? So this theory basically defends and considers as legitimate modern multi-party democracy. It's not a sham. It is, honestly, these guys are securing the interests of their respective peoples. This is the theory of pluralism. In order to do so, friends, how do the people choose leadership? Through regular elections, through a multiplicity or plurality of also political parties, ideologies, interest groups or pressure groups, etc. Okay? This is the theory of pluralism. These are all the theories that we have to discuss in our UPSC social syllabus: functional, Marxist, elite, theory of two types, classical and modern, and pluralism theory. Which theory, now you give me the final verdict, which theory best captures the nature of the political system in India? That is the beauty of the students. They always agree with the last viewpoint which has been expressed. Almost unanimously, most of you are vouching for the pluralism theory. Fine. In any case, every theory has its own rationale. Chaliye, with that, we take a well-deserved break and then we return. Welcome back, friends. Please confirm. Yes, thank you. Chaliye. Now let us try to examine in some detail the political system which is arguably one of the most popular across the globe, at least in current times. Which political system am I talking about? Which kind of political system is the most popular? Also in our own polity, it is democracy. Democracy, friends, by far seems to be the most popular kind of political system in modern times across the globe. Of course, it is not the only one. Right? So there are any number of other kinds of ways of organizing the political life of a community. Yet, across different societies, cultures, levels of socio-economic development, terrain, geographical or climatic conditions, we find that democracy as a political system resonates or has found the widest acceptance in various conditions and amongst various peoples. So, friends, what is democracy? What is democracy? In our country also we have a democracy. What is this democracy? Tell me your layman understanding. Government of the people, by the people and for the people. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln's very, very apt and pithy phrase, where people choose their rulers, rule by the people, of the people, for the people, government of the people. Right, this very, very pithy phrase by Abraham Lincoln literally captures the essence of democracy, right? So it's on everybody's lips, literally. It's almost as if in unison you have all risen up to suggest it is government of the people, by the people and for the people. Absolutely, friends. That is one very appropriate way of defining or explaining democracy. Let us now get into some kind of what makes this government of the people, by the people and for the people. See, look at etymologically in terms of the word construction. It comprises of two words, demos plus cracy. The suffix cracy denotes what? Means rule of, bureaucracy, plutocracy, autocracy. Demos means the people. So literally the word democracy means rule of the people. So democracy is a political system, friends, in which power rests with who? In the people. In a democratic political system, it is the people who are the sovereign. The people rule possibly through their representatives. So the masses or the people have a say in the taking of the decisions which affect their lives. A democratic political system is characterized by, quickly tell me, friends, what makes a democracy? Regular, free and fair elections, rule of law, not rule of persons, limited government, meaning the powers of the government are not unfettered, right? The notion of equality, a vibrant civil society, an independent body to conduct free and fair elections, like we have the Election Commission, various freedoms, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, participation of the people, separation of powers, absolutely, multiple political parties, universal adult franchise. Yes, we have spoken of various rights and freedoms. Right? So all these combinedly together make what we today understand as a democratic political system. How old is this form of government? Earlier, arguably, it was the monarchical form of government, which was characterized by hereditary rule and absolute powers that was more popular. But in recent times, or relatively modern times, let's say, the democratic form of government has gained in popularity. How old is the democratic political system? Yes, representative government, government is accountable, etc. 300 years, newer than monarchy. Please appreciate, friends, the democratic political system traces its roots to many thousands of years ago. What may today be termed as a proto-democracy existed in the ancient Greek city-states, or in the Mahajanpads in ancient India. However, friends, they did not have, those proto-democracies did not have the same set of features that characterize modern-day democracies. What we have, the modern-day democracies, they are a relatively new phenomenon. So point is, the concept of democracy has evolved with time. Thousands of years back, there did exist proto-democracies or limited forms of democracies from the present day perspective in ancient Greece or ancient India. There were 16 Mahajanpads, right? If I remember correctly. Then some important landmark developments in the evolution of the democratic political system took place in the 13th century. In about 1215, the Magna Carta was signed. Magna Carta was a document by signing which the British monarch limited his powers and ceded some powers, gave away some of his powers to these kind of somewhat elected bodies. In 1265, friends, the first British Parliament was elected. However, the voting rights were extremely limited. So much so that till the 18th century, they were confined to less than 3% of the population. So till as late as 18th century, the notion of universal adult suffrage was not there. In the 18th century, some landmark developments in the evolution of the democratic political system were the American Revolution and the French Revolution. The French Revolution gave to the world the democratic ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The American Revolutionary Wars, on their part, they ensured that democratic institutions were firmly established and the democratic experiment seemed the most successful in American soil. So what should be its governing ideals? The French Revolution told how it works. The American people showed to the world. During the 19th century, friends, the ambit of suffrage was continuously expanded to include hitherto excluded groups like women. So initially the concept of suffrage was very limited, that only males, only those with a certain income or assets were allowed participation in the political process. Females were excluded, people of color were excluded, right? The poor were excluded. Importantly, women were granted the suffrage rights. In the 20th century, friends, some important developments in the democratic political system, it's like closer in time period to us. One was the civil rights movement in the United States of America. Meaning, championing of equality in various areas of social life and the law, particularly challenging the discrimination on the basis of color or race. Another important development in mid-20th century was decolonization, or the end of colonialism. After the end of the Second World War, the various colonies in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, they became free in a span of about 2 decades, including which important country? Demographically? Yes, us, India. So many of these newly freed nations, they also adopted the democratic political system, thereby further spreading democracy to newer societies. The ex-colonies, or many of the ex-colonies. The next wave of democratization occurred when? After the collapse of the Berlin Wall, meaning in 1990s, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and the world historic defeat of the communist ideology, which proposed a different political system. Many of these erstwhile Eastern Bloc countries, they adopted democracy, including Russia. And after the end of the Cold War, which world leader has taken upon itself to spread democracy to different parts of the world? The benevolent big brother United States of America, right? Basically, whenever they spot oil, they realize that the people are oppressed and need to be immediately set free. So they would push their forces to ensure that the people are freed by the ruthless local rulers, right? Whether it is Iraq or Afghanistan, they want to do it with Iran, Cuba. So yes, in a way, US has championed the global spread of democracy and often backed by military power. So that is about the historic evolution and spread of democracy. In essence, friends, democracy is not a new form of government for sure. It has its roots in the hoary ancient past. Though the kind of popularity it enjoys today, it did not do so in those olden times. Though the kind of political system we have come to consider as democratic today did not exist till as recently as 200 or 300 years back. Right? So today's democratic political systems, characterized by regular elections, powerful and independent media, universal adult suffrage, all that, and a very, very vibrant and participatory civil society, all that is somewhat new or relatively new. Okay? Please write down some standard definitions of democracy. According to Samuel Huntington, democracy is a political system in which the most powerful collective decision makers are selected through fair, honest, and periodic elections, in which candidates freely compete for votes. Don't you dare ask me to repeat. In which the candidates freely compete for votes, and in which virtually all adult population is eligible to vote. Democracy also implies existence of civil and political freedoms, civil and political freedoms to speak, publish, assemble, and organize. Which are necessary for political debate and conduct of electoral campaigns. Okay? That is his rather longish definition of democracy. And there are 1,000 others we don't need to get into, of course. And as all definitions, this one is also an ideal type. All definitions are in that sense ideal type. They portray a pure type model. Now, friends, let us try to appreciate what accounts for, what explains the massive popularity of the democratic political system. Why is it the most preferred across cultures, across peoples, across geographies and levels of socio-economic development? ऐसा है क्या democracy है? What makes democracy such a hit across cultures? Tell me. Let us celebrate democracy. Let us sing praise in the name of democracy. You tell me. Why do we prefer the democratic political system? It is inclusive. We can show discontent. We feel powerful. It enables people's participation. It guarantees rights. Government is held accountable. Absolutely, friends. Please keep noting down all these legitimate reasons. Okay, what are the benefits, advantages of the democratic political system? What explains its popularity? It empowers people. It ensures their participation in the political system. Governments or the rulers are held accountable. Can you hold rulers accountable in an authoritarian system or a military rule? In a democratic political system, the rights of the people are secured. Civil liberties are guaranteed. It is more participatory. It enables and empowers the individual. So does my vote count in a billion plus people? Does your individual vote count in the sea of humanity? Yes, it does. The decision-making process in a democracy, is it slow or fast, say, compared to an autocracy or a single-party government? It is decidedly slower, friends. But then is it still preferable? Yes, because it involves consensus building, debating issues threadbare, contrarian points of view being expressed, taking different sections of the society along in policy formulation, addressing people's concerns, except for the farm bills, right? So it involves consensus building and taking all the stakeholders in the social and political processes along. It offers a real choice to the people. A democratic political system offers choice. So it ensures that those in power are regularly held accountable. Can Modi decide to be non-performing? Can he choose to be non-performing? He'll be thrown out of office. So he better perform, else we will get him another fellow. It ensures also, appreciate friends, in a multi-cultural society. Okay, there is a multiplicity of identities in most modern societies. Many argue in such kind of a scenario, only the democratic system is feasible. You can't have a theocratic state. You can't have a monarchy. If it would be a theocratic state, then which religion would govern? Should we declare India a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu theocracy like Nepal was till recently? Given that majority of us are Hindu, we'll be ruled by the Manusmriti. What do you say? No. Why? Because we also have a sizable non-Hindu population. So, only in a democratic political system, these diversity of identities which exist in the society, they will find representation in the political system. They will feel that they have a stake in the political system. Right? So, that increases the legitimacy of the system. Friends, I suggest, if I were to play the devil's advocate, let us anoint Modi ji as a dictator. Okay? Such kind of a neta we will not get in another 100 years. So, एक उनको benevolent dictator घोषित कर देते हैं. What do you say? No matter how hardened a Modi fan you are, you would still want Modi to come via the democratic electoral route. आएगा तो Modi ही, but through the democratic process. Or let us declare India monarchy. Gandhis they have ruled for a good chunk of our independent life as a country. Let us declare Rahul Gandhi Raja. He is anyways Raja Beta of the country. What do you say? Even if we chose the Gandhis for 5 odd decades, we did so using the democratic route. So the kind of legitimacy, wide public engagement, participatory governance, a sense of empowerment and enabling the people. Only in a democracy you can have, friends, a people-centric government. Democratic governments, by their very nature, have to be people-centric. They cannot afford to be not people-focused. Why? Because people are the source of power. So if the policies do not take into account the needs, the concerns of the people, the rulers cannot stay in power, which does not hold so in case of a monarchy or a theocracy or a military rule or a single-party government or what have you. So democracy ensures accountability of the rulers. It ensures that checks and balances are maintained. They are inbuilt into the democratic political system. Right? There is a separation of powers, and then you have countervailing forces like opposition parties, like a watchful media, like these kind of nazar-guarded civil society organizations. So as Lord Acton had said, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this prevents, the democratic political system prevents concentration of power. Only in a democratic, some scholars would go to the extent of saying, only in a democratic political system is good governance possible. So Ram Rajya aayega to kahan aayega? Only in a democracy. Only in a democracy we can have a government which is answerable, which is accountable, which is responsive and responsible. Please appreciate the individual is, there is this very humongous state with all its financial resources, military might, etc. confronting the individual. So seemingly the individual is very small, insignificant, powerless literally, against the mighty state apparatus. But is he really that threatened by the power of the state in a democracy? Is he that impotent against this monstrous state in a democracy? Do you as an individual feel threatened by the state? It's another matter if you are Ravish Kumar, but otherwise. The individual's rights and freedoms are adequately secured in a democratic political system. Okay? So the individual's right to speech, the right to criticize, the right to protest, the right to agitate, the right to organize, the right to express a contrarian opinion are protected, guaranteed in a democratic political system. Fine. So, democracy, friends, because of these various features, is one of the most preferred forms of government across the globe. Would you want a single party government like in China? No elections? A far-sighted, squint-eyed leader like Jinping? Or a Sharia-compliant or a Manusmriti-compliant government? A theocratic state? The Indian people, of which this class is a minuscule, is a microcosm, would reject any such suggestions. Vouching for which form of government? Only once did the national leadership exhibit dictatorial tendencies during the emergency years of Indira Gandhi, for which she was smoothly, swiftly, quickly punished by the people in the People's Court. And then she also came back to power, but using which route? The democratic route. But she was also shown her place by the all-powerful people. So friends, is democracy really as awesome as it is being made out to be? What are all these, very fancy adjectives that we use for democracy, that it is representative, responsive, and accountable, and people-centric? Is it really so? Or these are merely theoretical, ideal type, bookish kind of praise being sung in the honor of democracy? Let us see now, let us try to appreciate the shortcomings of democracy. Let us try to criticize this much celebrated form of political system from various perspectives. Let us appreciate the criticism of democracy by the ancient Greek philosophers to begin with. Plato, he was very highly critical of democratic political system. Plato was of the view that people are born different, with different qualities, traits, and temperaments. Okay? He said that people are born with different kinds of souls. Souls of silver, souls of iron, and souls of gold. Okay? Meaning their kind of qualities or attributes are different. Not all people are equipped, designed for ruling over, for public rule or for public life. Only those with souls of gold, they are fit to be the rulers. So you tell me, friends. Now, Plato we may consider archaic, outdated basically, because he's suggesting that people are unequal. And democracy is premised on the assumption of equality. But tell me, friends, are we equal or unequal? So democracy entails what? That on a people who are fundamentally, inherently unequal, we are superimposing equality. The notion of equality on a people who are fundamentally unequal. He compares administration, government, to steering of a ship. He says, imagine you are on a ship and you're going through a rough patch. Okay, the sea is all tumultuous. How would you like the decisions to be taken? By a vote, a majority vote of all the people on the ship? Or the decision should be taken by a captain who has the expertise to steer the ship? One or two? Will you leave it to a vote of all the people on the ship? That which direction you have to go, at what speed, etc., etc., or a captain with the requisite expertise? Clearly, most of us would possibly choose the captain. And what makes you think that administration and government is any less complex and less important a task, or that it requires any less expertise than steering a ship? So in a democracy, you are basically giving power to everybody. While everybody is not fit is not competent, is not suited to rule. Aristotle. Plato suggested that society should be ruled by a philosopher king. A person who can combine the qualities of a philosopher and a ruler. Only he is fit to be a ruler. Not the हर किसी के बस की बात नहीं है. Not everybody is designed to rule or has the qualities, the ability, the expertise required to rule. Aristotle, he suggested that political participation should not be extended to three categories of persons, namely slaves, women, and the poor. Why? Slaves, because they do not have bodily autonomy, right? So those who cannot take decisions for their own selves, how can they be expected to take decisions for the community? So they should be kept out. Only free men should be allowed to participate. Women should not be allowed. Why? Because they are temperamental, egoistical, flippant, emotional, frivolous, etc. So they are not fit for public life. The poor, because they are mercenary in character. Mercenary in the sense, they would do anything for money, right? They are driven by the greed for money. So there, how can they cannot be entrusted with taking tasks or taking decisions for the whole of the community, because they will be driven by greed, monetary greed. Now these ideas seem very, very outdated today, right? Slavery is a system which doesn't exist in modern societies. But would you agree with Aristotle when he suggests that women should not be allowed to participate in public life? He simply seems misogynistic or woman-hating. All women and several men are up in arms. And his argument that the poor should be kept out of the political process, while it is again not acceptable in today's day and age, where we don't have any property restrictions or wealth criteria for political participation, does his criticism merit or hold any water in contemporary times? Do you see Indian democracy being corrupted by the use of money power? You give a liquor bottle or a sari or a bag of rice to the poor and you literally buy their votes. Right? Anyways, another criticism, or set of criticisms rather, from the Marxist perspective. Marxists are critical of these Western democracies, wherein you have economically the model is capitalism and politically it is multi-party democracy. From a Marxist perspective, friends, these Western liberal democracies in the capitalist countries, these are bourgeois democracies, or democracies not of all the people. They are democracies of the rich, by the rich, for the rich. The interests and concerns of the poor, the working class, are not secured, not represented in the democratic political system in capitalist societies. Marxists suggest that different political parties, right? Say in India you have the BJP and the Congress and the Samajwadi Party and the whichever party, Aam Aadmi Party, and the Mamata Party, TMC, and so on and so forth. Now pluralists would claim that these offer choice to the people, to the masses. And the masses can have their interests secured. If BJP is not doing it, they will go to the INC, to the SP, or whoever. Marxist scholars contend that this is an illusion of choice. There is no real choice being offered to the masses in these capitalist countries. If you look at the economic policies, the program of the so-called different parties, they are actually quite similar. In other words, all political parties, they basically follow the same pro-rich, pro-capitalist kind of economic policies. So the poor are only offered an illusion of choice and no real choice. So whether you vote for the Democrats or the Republicans in US, whether you vote for the Conservatives or the Labour Party, named after the working class in Britain, whether you vote for the BJP or the Congress in India, all political parties follow the same pro-capitalist policies. And friends, if you have seen, over the past, like since 1990s, we have seen a very wide spectrum of political parties, including the communist parties, CPI and CPIM, their supported parties at the center. And the trajectory of Indian economy has been quite consistent. Pro-globalization, liberalization, market economy. Right? So it may be only a matter of degree that they would say we will permit 49% FDI or 51% or 74%. But clearly all political parties have very broadly the same set of pro-capitalist policies. Yes or no? Then what about elections? Don't elections empower the people to throw out these pro-capitalist parties? No. Elections are a necessary tamasha. They are literally a show put on to give the people a sense of being empowered. They distract the people from the exploitative nature of the whole system. So during elections, what happens? These political leaders, they will come and they will put on a show, blame each other, point fingers, etc. While none of them would criticize or highlight the inadequacies, the exploitative nature of the capitalist system as such. The system remains secure. And the people feel empowered, and you go waste half a day at the polling booth and you show off that little mark on your finger. Radhika, my vote will bring Modi or bring Rahul Gandhi. Do you really think you have equal political weight as Mukesh Ambani? Theoretically, these democracies here are based on the principle of one man, one vote? Are you and Ambani playing equally decisive and important roles in Indian democracy? Absolutely not. That guy is deciding who will be the petroleum minister. Right? And your political participation is confined to posting on pro-Modi or anti-Modi slogans on Facebook. So, mere political equality is theoretical. Real equality cannot be achieved without economic equality. There is a wealth of difference between my political reach and that of the rickshaw puller and that of Ambani. The rickshaw puller has no say. I can reach the local MLA's office and seek favors. Ambani will straight away connect to the Prime Minister's office. So, this illusion of political equality without any substantive economic equality is a farce. Lenin was the guy who put Marxist theory to practice, right? He kind of established the USSR, right? The first government of the working class after the Bolshevik Revolution, right? He was both a practitioner and theoretician of Marxism. Lenin famously said, he termed these Western parliaments as mere talking shops. These are mere talking shops. Talking shops. So only superficial talk takes place in the parliaments, the so-called temples of democracy. It is not these politicians who are laying down policy or even drafting legislation, which is their supposed task. Who is doing that? The real power of government is exercised by who? Tell me. It is the unelected bureaucrats. So these guys are merely putting on a tamasha in the parliament. The parliamentarians, the elected representatives of the people. The real work of government, which is drafting legislation, deciding policy matters, it is done by unelected bureaucrats. And whose line do they toe? The capitalist. Come to think of it, friends, actually all legislation is actually drafted by, not by the politicians. They merely table it in the parliament. The drafting is done. See, most bills are government bills. Private member bills are very few and far in between. Government bills are drafted by the respective ministries. In the ministries, it is the bureaucracy who is entrusted with drafting of legislation. Supposedly, you have a separation of powers, executive, legislature, and judiciary. Executive to implement laws and legislature to make laws. But actually, it is the permanent executive or the bureaucracy which is unelected and therefore unanswerable to the people, which is even drafting legislation. So all these parliaments, elections, these are basically a tamasha to satisfy, to delude, to bedazzle, to hoodwink the gullible masses. आप बस यहाँ पे इंक लगा के घूमते रहो. So who wields political power? According to these guys, बाप बड़ा ना भैया, सबसे बड़ा रुपया. It is the capitalists or those who enjoy dominance in the economic base. They also wield political power. From an elite theory perspective, how do we criticize democracy? Elite theorists would contend that elite rule is inevitable. So democracy is no different from the single party, non-democratic government in China, or the theocratic state in Iran or wherever, or the military junta rule of Myanmar. All are minor variations of the same thing, which is what? A handful of people ruling over the masses. In other words, friends, democracy claims it is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people can never rule and do never rule. Throughout human history, including in modern times, it is in democratic it is a handful of people who rule over the vast majority. The majority, classical elite theorists would contend, do not have the capacity to self-govern. Right? They rather need a Pied Piper, like a Modi, like a Gandhi, like an Indira, like a Nehru. They need that Masiha, that golden-eyed boy, whatever you want to call him. That benefactor. So people's rule has never been and can never be. C. Wright Mills, he was very critical of modern American democracy, arguing that the elites, they are a unified, cohesive lot, using this unbridled power for self-aggrandizement, to pursue their own interests, taking decisions which affect millions of Americans without any reference to them. And in name, America is a leader of the free world, then the world's exemplar democracy. Another criticism of democracy, friends, is that it may turn into a tyranny of the majority. Democracy means that every person has equal say or weightage in the political process, one man, one vote. So that social group to which more people belong, they or those who have a numerical preponderance, numerical majority, they can capture the democratic system. But what about the rights, the concerns, the interests, the fears of the numerical minorities? They may not be adequately represented or secured in democracy. Theoretically, friends, if tomorrow Modi ji or the more firebrand in say 20 years or 15 years, Yogi Adityanath ji become the Prime Minister and choose some bizarre pronouncement that all masjids in India will be replaced by mandirs. Now we have secured a thumping majority. India is a Hindu majority country where 80% people are Hindus and people want temples, not masjids. And it may be so that majority people want more mandirs than masjids. But then what about the concerns of the Muslims, of the Christians, of the tribals? Yes or no? So majority, with its numerical power, can control a democratic political system, thereby threatening the interests, concerns, well-being of minority groups. Next, friends, another criticism. It is claimed that democracy is representative, right? Let us see how representative it really is. Our population is how much? 131 crore, right? That's the population of the country. What is the size of the electorate? Those who are eligible to vote? Okay, maybe 138 crores or 130 crore plus roughly, the overall population. The size of the electorate is about 90 crores. Say in the national elections or the general elections to the Lok Sabha. Near about 90 crores is the, say, roughly the size of the electorate. Out of which, how many people vote? India has a very high voter turnout, right? 60-65% globally. 60-70% kind of a voter turnout. So 2/3 of these people roughly vote, which would amount to 60 crore are the voters. Now BJP has secured a second thumping majority after 3 decades of political instability where no single party got a majority in the Lok Sabha. How much votes did the BJP secure? How many people voted for the BJP? About, I think 37 or something, 38-40%, right? So 40% say, max 40% of 60 crores, 6, 12, 18, 24. 24 crore people voted for the BJP. Right? So point is, this government is a representative government of 130 plus crore Indians or 24 crore Indians. A huge chunk you have excluded from the political exercise, calling them kids. Right? So these are basically, this is the difference of those below 80, 50 crore people, 40 crore people. Another 30 who were eligible to participate in the exercise chose not to. Right? So point is that the representative character of the representative or so-called representative governments in a democratic political system is under question. Then another criticism, friends, is about the level of political participation. The vast, overwhelming majority of people, friends, in a democratic political system are, they are very, very marginal participants in the democratic exercise. What is the level of participation of the typical average Joe, including you and I? How do we participate? Once in 5 years, for 5 minutes at the time of voting. So rather than there being any continuous high-level engagement of the mass of people, it is a very fleeting encounter with democracy that we have. Very few are the gladiators. Gladiators in the sense who would actually, get down into the dirty hurly-burly of electoral politics. Contest elections, secure public, or try to, get public office. Very minuscule fraction. A vast majority of the people are politically passive. Just reflect on your own, if you are like 18 plus since 3, 4, 5 years, just reflect on your own level of political participation. We get this false sense of participation on Twitter, etc. by ranting for or against certain political ideologies, leaders or parties. But that is about it. Real, meaningful engagement in the form of campaigning, electoral campaigns, fundraising, seeking office, public office, fighting elections is a very, very minuscule fraction of the population. Yes or no? So is it really a people's government where people participate, people are empowered? People are sleeping. So, on that somber note, Jai Hind. We are done for the day. Dhanyavad. Thank you, friends.